Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Kaushik Ganguli. He's a distinguished writer, essayist, and a poet who has garnered acclaim from a very young age. So, we're going to get down to finding out what is it that really inspired Kaushik to write from a very young age. But before that, his journey includes winning prestigious awards such as the Poetry Competition by the British Council in 1993 and contributing to the Statesman during 2002 and 4. Kaushik's literary career soared with his best-selling debut, Rhyme of the Century, followed by the successful Forever and Rhyme of the Modern Mariner. His interests span fiction, non-fiction, including management and personal finance, sports, cricket and football, and poetry, reflecting a diverse and dynamic literary repertoire. With a goal to write a book annually for the next 2 decades, Kaushik draws inspiration from authors like Frederick, Forsyth and poets such as Alfred Lord Tennyson, weaving themes of history, politics, culture with profound insight and research driven narrative. Kaushik's favorite, I will say this on his behalf, is Alfred Lord Tennyson, Robert Browning, William Butler Yeats, Nizam Ezekiel, and Jeev Patel. Hi, Kaushik, and welcome to today's episode.
Hi, Muhammad. Thank you so much, first of all, for considering me for this episode. And I've been following your podcast for quite some time, and I must say that they're highly value added. Lot of content in them, and I've also followed your journey as an author, and I must say that the way you write, the way you have been crafting literary works has also kind of inspired me quite a bit. So, very, very pleased to come on board today, and let's look forward to a lot of good interaction, mutual learning, and all that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. So, Kaushik, let me ask you the first question that you've had a very remarkable journey as a writer. Can you tell us the start and what inspired you to start writing at a very young age and how young were you?
Okay, first of all, a little talk about my family background. My father, in his time, was an IAS officer belonging to the Central Cadre. So I studied in 5 schools, and he was a thorough Calcuttan. Grew up in South Calcutta in the 40s, 50s, studied in presidency. So he had that kind of a background. My mother was a Probashi, like you. So she came from Allahabad, and my maternal grandfather was in the railways. He was a general manager of 2 divisions of the railways, and my mother was a psychologist. And so education, learning was always at a premium, and there was no excuse for having a poor command of English, a good grasp of numbers, very strong grip on current affairs. So this is the three things that we grew up with. We grew up with a background of maths, English, and general knowledge. This had to be very good. Otherwise, everything else was denied. And then what happened was that gradually, as I grew, maybe when I was a time around 9, 10, I started submitting essays at school, and everybody said, "Oh, you write so well." This feedback started coming, and my mother said that, "No, why don't you start writing more and more?" And I changed schools for the last time in 1983. I was 13 at that time. And in my very first term, I got the highest prize for an essay. That marked me out. I took part in a medal essay competition, and that was very prestigious some 40 years back in Xavier's in the 80s in Calcutta. Got the prize, as they didn't get the first prize, but got a prize. And gradually, people started saying, "Oh, you write well." In fact, in my class 10th, I, we started our essays in those days with one line, and then you had to build upon the one line. So I
Once
still
upon a
remember,
time.
once upon a time, no, I still remember the line. The line was, "The still night was shattered by a roar of gunfire." So you write from that. And at that time, we were brought up on a diet of Western movies, gangster movies, mafia movies, World War II. So it was easy to write. And after that, I got the feedback again that, "Is this your own or have you copied?" So it started from there. But destiny had other things in choice for me. I studied chartered accountancy, which was as removed as you want from this line. And but again, I kept at it. In fact, my attempt in 1993 at the Poetry Contest of India, which is founded by the British Council, and in fact, the gentleman was Money Call. So out of almost 10,000 entries, mine was selected. Out of about 30, 35 poems were selected for publishing. That was a major victory, and it made me realize, okay, I can write poetry. So these were the early days, and I think that's it. And from there started this journey as an author. Back to you.
Wonderful. You've actually had a very diverse educational background. There's been chartered accountancy, management accountancy, life and career coaching. And so, how do you think all these fields kind of come together with your writing?
Well, I think gradually I have this knack of absorbing the environment around me and I can adapt to any environment. Mohu, if you throw me out of an aircraft at 10,000 feet with a parachute and you throw me into any country, I can absorb the flavor of that country. So gradually, chartered accountancy was articleship in the early 90s. So there were a lot of people, there were partners of various profiles. So I started observing their characters. So it was very Dickensian in that way. Each partner had a different character. Articles, staff, they had different characters. So I started, and I'm also a good actor and a mimic. So I started saying, okay, this is what could be written about them. And any incident, I could write about it very well. So that, again, I may sound a little immodest, but people start telling me, no, you have actually brought the incident to life. So that was about initial part of the career. Then again, it was also about the workplace. Once I qualified, I was very fortunate. I would say 50% of life is all about luck, and the balance 50% is your efforts and merit. So I was very lucky to pass my CA at the age of 24. I was also a management accountant from the UK. And since you're my contemporary, you can relate. In those days, it was a dream to go abroad, work for some time, get savings, get a standard of living. So then what happened was that, but those were the early days. From 94 to 2004, there were a lot of challenges. I was working, I got married early, I had my kids early. All that happened. So I was not able to devote much time to writing. But somewhere down the line, there was this voice inside my head which said that, hey, don't give up this vocation because that's what you're meant to be. And as the psychologist Carl Rogers says, that, we are all self actualization mode oriented. So, what is self actualization? Self actualization is all about, a tree, the roots always grow towards the water. The leaves always grow towards the sunlight. So that is self actualization. So gradually, as I became senior in my career, I moved out of Calcutta because my career then reached a stage where I could not stay in Calcutta anymore. And when I moved to Bombay, once again I started writing. By that time, I was very lucky. Earlier, all the writing from the period of 83 till 94 was all on paper and pen. I was about to buy a typewriter, but somebody told me, no, this is going to get obsolete soon. But so don't buy a typewriter, buy a computer instead. I'm very glad I took that decision. By 2006 7, I bought a laptop. And then I saw it so much easier. I could actually keep my work. I could actually write drafts. I could write versions. I could, in fact, write on pen, scan, and save it in the computer. So all that became very easy. And then my writing started off. So I think back to you. Thanks for listening.
Oh no, it's wonderful. It's really nice to know that you recognize your vocation, because a lot of people don't. It takes them years, to really recognize what is it that's their Zen space. What is it that they come the closest to themselves? You've achieved a lot over the years, So what was it like to see your first book, Rhyme of the Century, become a bestseller on Amazon? How did you feel? How did people around you relate to it?
Actually, Mohammed, the thing is that the people who encouraged me the most, first of all, was my mother. Being an art student, again, being very ahead of her time. She actually pioneered research on autism in the 80s when autism was totally unheard of in India. So she was always light years ahead of her times. I always say that if all of us were rock bands, my mother would be like the Doors, Jim Morrison. Absolutely light years ahead. So then my mother was the person who was interested in seeing me publish, and there were many times she told me that, please write, get it published. At that time, one thing I realized was, Moho, which you will also appreciate being a published author yourself, writing is easy, but getting a publisher is tough.
Very.
So the thing is that, I was very difficult to get a publisher. I was working in Taj at that time in Mumbai in 2010, 11. I sent some of my rushes to Westland. They rejected. They said no. Some of my manuscripts were misunderstood. So they said no. And thereby it went on. 2016, I came back to Calcutta. I was 47 and 46, 47. And then around 2018, 19, I got introduced to this forum called Solitaire. Solitaire. So this was a forum called Solitaire. This was a literary society, a self-publishing house. And They said that no, if you've got something, submit it. Be happy to take a look at it. And gradually, with time, I became the part of the core team, the All India core team of Solitaire, which has more than 300 writers and authors and poets in English, Hindi, Urdu. So then I started feeling, okay, let me go back to those poems which I wrote. Some of them were in soft copy, some of them were in hard copy, some of them had got lost, but I retained it inside my head, so I rewrote those poems. So gradually I got 52 poems ready, and then I said, no, this must have a structure. Being a qualified chartered accountant, having taken care, so structure, process, these things all come naturally to me. And I said, okay, let me structure it in a manner which I feel people can read it properly. So I said, okay, I'll come to that in a few questions later, maybe. But then I structured it in a way. I said, okay, it has to be with a purpose. So I said, okay, let me write 52 poems. Why 52? One for each week of the year, so that people can read it, reflect on it, think upon it deeply, and then maybe make notes on it, because my book is not just meant to be bought and kept in a shelf. It's meant to be gone through repeatedly, thumbed over and over again. So that is what my uh, book is all about. Then it got released, and Solitaire were very kind enough. So I remember I made them do the cover many times. The best was that they gave me an ISBN, which is a copyright. And then I gave my about the author, about the book, all that acknowledgements. Many people, apart from my parents, my sister has been a huge support. So all of them, some of my colleagues, they always told me that, in fact, one of my seniors, Mr. Amitav Sen, he has retired recently as senior finance professional in Tata's. One day he told me, you're wasting your time. There are many chartered accountants. There are not too many people who can write like you. So people like them, I had to acknowledge. Then it was released sometime in August 2020. It was the most unlikely time to release a book. The pandemic was raging. People were inside their house. So Solitaire said that, okay, we will be releasing it mainly in a soft copy. It will be released on Amazon. And within 11 days, the book became a bestseller. It was number 5 on the anthologies list. And that was an amazing feeling. And at least I was very glad that my parents could see the light of day for this book.
How wonderful is that? How wonderful. You
So
also co
that
authored the book.
forever, yes.
So tell me a little about that.
So forever came. By the time I was a member of Solitaire, we were participating in anthologies. And one day, Virat, who's the founder of Solitaire, wonderful, wonderful human being, he said that, I am thinking of getting a co-authored book. The co-authored book is basically all about, 4 authors who will write 25 poems each. I said, okay. And I started writing. In fact, my second book on poetry, which is I'll come to later, I said, okay, let me write it in a particular way. 25 poems. One of them will stand out. The rest, 24, are actually 2 poems of 12 pairs. So everything has got a structure and everything has got a meaning. So this is the way Forever came about, and there were 4 other authors. And the collaboration was there. I mean, I did not rein in my creativity at any point of time, but I also felt that a couple of times I asked authors that, what are you writing? Are you writing something similar? Is there going to be a clash somewhere? So they said, no, that's absolutely fine. And gradually the book took shape and it was released. There also it was released at a very odd time. The second pandemic wave was going on. My kids were both down. My wife was down with pandemic, and my son's infection particularly was very severe. Between all that, the book was released. But I realized one thing, Mohu, I'll be frank about it, that when I read the reviews, because all these got reviews on Amazon, the reviews of Rhyme of the Centuries were very specific. They focus on certain poems, they focused on certain stanzas, but Forever, the reviews were much more general. So I felt that rather than write, I said, okay, this is fine, this has been a good experiment, but let me now focus on something which I want to write upon
Yourself.
myself. So this was a good book. In fact, I still have it. I have kept it in my house. Anybody who wants, I can give them copies. All that is there. But I think this is a unique experiment. I'm glad to have been proud of it. But then I said, okay, it's time. So let me get back to my solo writing again.
There's another joy of doing solo writing. I also think so. because
Yeah.
it's really a lot of your own process that you go through, when you're putting things together, your own, consciousness that comes in when you're putting your writing together. So let's just talk about your latest book, Rhyme of the Modern Mariner, that's received a lot of praise. So can you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind it? And there are three sections that the book has been structured into: places, people, and thoughts. So how do each of these sections complement each other to create a cohesive narrative? Because they're all different, right? And in which ways do they collectively enhance the reader's journey through the entire book? So for somebody who wants to pick up the book, who's listening to us, how do they understand the structure of this book?
So let us talk about places, people, and thoughts. So places is basically relating to places where I have traveled. I've been fairly widely traveled. So typically, for example, I discuss, like, in even this is a structure which is there in Rhyme of the Century. So Rhyme of the Century, these may be places where I've been to or places where I've read about. Like my father, again a very well-traveled person in his own time. He has traveled all over Middle East, North Africa, then certain areas of Europe which I've read about, which I've not been. Places like Poland, places like Germany. These are places I've written about in both the books. And for example, the Rhyme of the Modern Mariner talks about a visit to Turkey, which I actually did in 2008. It was a work-related visit, but some of the memories of that visit was amazing. So I wrote about that. Then places within India which I've been to. I've traveled to every state in India, I think, except maybe Kashmir, and that state was covered in 2017. So I wrote about all the places which I've been to, and sometimes in micro view, sometimes in a much more broader, much more expansive view. So that's it about places. If you talk about people, we meet a lot of people in our day to day work, personal, professional. So many of these people I wrote about. So, for example, the designer whom we met in Turkey, her cousin was the last wife of the Nizam of Hyderabad.
Wow. Can you imagine
So,
that?
so
Well,
in
how
fact,
did you figure this one out?
figured it out because we had a very love-hate relationship. There were times when I was talking to her, she said, "You have not released all the payments I've done." I said, "No, I've released it and I've sent it to payments." Then she said, "I'll complain against you." I said, "Yes, please go ahead and complain because I'm very sure that I've not been tardy on my work." Then once we went to Turkey, her hospitality was mind blowing. And she, in fact, took the liberty. There was this niece of hers, extremely beautiful lady. She was actually from Circassian origin, came from the northern shores of the Black Sea. So she said that, "No, you have got very little time. So evening, can I take you out for entertaining and shopping?" So I was very touched. And so some things like these. And one of the stories was again about a lady who I met in London who was running her own space for experimental theatre in a place called Hampstead. So all these form part of people, various people and how they affected me. We now come to thoughts. So if you come to thoughts, thoughts are all about, by the time I was seriously into counseling, mentoring, I work with students. This is something which I do today. I don't earn much money from it, but it helps me get by and I am self sufficient. So I counsel students, I counsel business owners, I counsel professionals. I also counsel couples who are in need of, getting the relationship back. This was something I do because I have seen this at close quarters in my family, and I believe that proper empathetic counseling with transparency, with confidentiality is a basic fundamental need for all. So there are a lot of thoughts which go through one's minds. So one of the poems which I have written is all about thoughts of two musicians because music is something very dear to me. One is about a musician called Graham Bond. He was a progressive rock musician who committed suicide in London in 1974. Very talented, but his music did not sell and he committed suicide. The other was, of course, something you also know, Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain is again a person who pioneered a genre of grunge, but yet he came with a troubled childhood and he also committed suicide. So, thoughts of, before they took the last step, what could have been the thoughts in their mind? Something like that. So,
Let's talk about your favorite authors. Frederick Forsyth and Ken Follett. How have they influenced your writing? Have they influenced at all?
yes, they have. They have quite a bit. So, I read Frederick Forsyth for the first time sometime in 1986. So, I was 16 at that time, gradually getting into the age when I was reading thrillers. And in fact, there was a time when my mother said that don't read too much of thrillers, read more classics, read the original unabridged version, don't read the abridged version. That was the kind of culture we have grown up in.
Same here.
And what happened was that what I liked about Forsyth was he was very history oriented. Had I not been a chartered accountant, I would have probably been a teacher of British history in Oxford or Cambridge or a US university. And history is something which I relate to. And I believe that if history is not learned from, then history is repeated. So, someone like Frederick Forsyth, somebody like Ken Folland, the incredible amount of detail which they go into is something which I admire. So today, if I am say writing, my one of my books which I'm writing at the moment, there's a lot of languages, like for example, translation of English to Spanish, translation of English to German, translation of English to say Italian, all sorts of languages set in various parts of the world. So they're getting the precise meaning of a particular phrase or a word or something. So that is something which I do. Without that, I don't proceed. Then, if I write about a particular city globally, then I see the map, which are the posh areas, which are the not so good areas, which is the city center, where are the government offices located. This is something which a Frederick Forsyth or a Ken Follett would do. Above all, the main thing is that the narrative is fast and you write it in a style which is typically yours. So that is something which I've learned from both these eminent authors.
So, you are one of those people who has this goal of writing a book a year for the next 20 years. My God, that's quite ambitious, but I also think like you. What drives you to maintain such a prolific output?
Well, one is that, Moho, something happened in 2022. My mother passed away. So she passed away within 18 hours. There was an accident at home. She suffered injuries. She suffered a trauma. We were unable to save her. Then I realized that no, my life has to change. With such incidents, what happens is your values change for the good. So now what I have decided to do is I am now in my mid 50s and I have decided that work is something which will go on for the next 4 5 years, not more than that. And I have my office in Kolkata where I stay. And I do not think that I'll be doing much of other things. I'll be carrying on work. Maybe I'll be doing a lot of social work, a lot of pro bono work because my savings are in place. If my savings are in place, if I feel I've had enough, then I can devote all that time to writing. And the main thing about writing is one, finding a publisher. I do have a publisher, but I would like to now explore the chances of getting an established publisher without self publishing. So I'm exploring that as well. It is going to be tough. The lead times are going to be long, but I'm going to give it a shot because I'm obstinate by nature. I'm stubborn and I don't take no for an answer. So let me see how that goes. Also, I have my ways to script something. In fact, so far, whatever has been published has been poetry. It has been poetry. I intend to write poetry, but I will also learn like to write prose because prose, particularly non-fiction, which is something I'm good at. Non-fiction, there are people who will take you on your credentials. There are people who will be publishing you, okay, because you're a chartered accountant, because you're a HUL alumni, you're a Tata alumni, you're a counselor, you're a career coach. They'll take you on your credentials. But to write fiction will take some time. So that is there. I've also have my means to beat writer's block. Writer's block is something all of us suffer from. All of us fall prey to it once in a while. It's not a bad thing. But at the same time, also the thing is, I have these priorities for my manuscripts. Some manuscript is on a priority, some manuscript is not on a priority. So all that is there. But yes, ultimately, what counts is execution. So execution is something I believe in. Conceptualization is something which is fine, but we cannot conceptualize. We have to execute and bring the product home.
You've also been involved in creating a micro tales for a health and wellness startup. So, can you tell us a little bit about this? How did your interest go towards wellness, health and wellness?
Okay, so it happened. It in fact happened with a friend of mine who is a very ambitious, career-oriented guy. He's also a chartered accountant like me, and both of us know each other since class 9. But I was always not such a careerist. Yes, I'm definitely sincere, diligent, but this guy was one of those types who wanted to be a CEO by the age of 35, 40. This was his goal, and he also achieved it, kind of. So one day he just looked me up on WhatsApp and said that, there is this health and wellness startup which I have, I'm a part of that. And we are thinking of writing something Because what we realized is that sleep is a major concern of every individual today on the planet. So people are sleep deprived. They need to read something to lull them to sleep. I said, okay, so how do I contribute in that? He said, no, the way you write, I think you can adapt to that very well. I said, what do I have to write specially? He says, you have to write something which lulls people to sleep. And you have to write something without any people's name, any personal nouns, without any brands, without any adjectives, without anything which will make adrenaline rush. So can you write something? I said, yes, it's tough, but let me give it a shot. So typically, this can be something as mundane as getting up and shaving in the morning for a guy. It can be as mundane as a lady using nail polish remover, applying a fresh coat of nail polish. Over 1200, 1000 to 1200 to 1500 words. I said, okay, let me take it on, maybe something. So then they said, then the first couple of stories went, they said, no, this is quite nice, this is what we are looking for. Then couple of stories went, came, all that happened. Then gradually I started writing, and this became a complete box set of 30 stories, micro tales, without any beginning, without any end. But people, then it started getting a voiceover. You're a voiceover artist yourself, so you can relate to that. So it got a voiceover. Ultimately, it did well, but I had to give my copyright to them. So, which is fine because they paid me handsomely for it. And because of that payment, I was able to publish Rime of the Modern Mariner. So it kind of paid for itself.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
so that was the way I evolved a way to finance my own writing.
Oh, amazing. So, Kaushik, what message would you like to leave for aspiring writers who look up to you?
First of all, thank you. That was a very, very generous compliment. I don't think I have any message except that the first message, one, if you like writing, write about what you are passionate about. I'm passionate about many things, but I do not write something I do not relate to or I'm not passionate about. Two, do not write to make money. It's one of the worst ways to think about making money. So if you write, please be aware that you are building a brand. Maybe that will happen, but even for that, you will have to pay. And even when I say that, I have this target of writing a book a year, the way is very simple. I'm not going to finance it. Either people pay me money to write content, pay me money for something else, and then that money is pushed into publishing. If I'm taken on, there are a lot of authors who have, there's this lady called Preeti Shenoy. Preeti Shenoy's husband, Satish Shenoy, is a very good friend of mine. She has got 16 books published. So I would look up to her rather than, somebody looking up. So that is the second lesson. The third lesson is that when you write, ensure that there is a structure. A lot of people have seen there's no structure, it rambles on and on and on and on. That does not do. People will get bored. Not everybody is a James Joyce that you write in minute details about one day in Dublin. So that doesn't work. That fourth of all, and the last message, enjoy your writing. Life is not about getting a book published and you standing up and becoming an author of repute. Right? Life is all about writing, seeing your characters, seeing your poetry, seeing your essays come to life. That joy is unbeatable. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kaushik, for being on today's episode. It was wonderful, and we wish you luck with the one book every year. And I hope that next year or this year end, we have another book to talk about on our podcast. And lots and lots of luck. And thank you so much for being on this show today.
Thank you. It was great being on the show today.